And welcome back to the channel, guys. Thanks for being here. Joined by, as you can see on the screen there, Mr. One and O Travis J. Davidson. How you doing, Travis?
I'm great. I'm great. Just headed back to Tulsa from Norman from a little radio event. We did a dinner, appreciation dinner for our sponsors, and yeah, it was great. Got to eat a little filet, little buttery mashed potatoes, some garlicky green beans, and then yeah, just headed eastbound on 44 back to Tulsa before radio tomorrow, and then back to Norman for a big weekend of good old fashioned SEC Big Ten matchup.
Big Ten matchup, definitely. The game that has the country's attention for Week 2 college football slate. If you're on YouTube and you clicked on this video, you might see Georgia Jon, his name in the title. He might be here. We're waiting to find out. Hopefully, he does check in with us. And if not, no big deal, no love lost for John. But we're gonna get Travis's opinion on a couple games around the SEC from Week 1. Unfortunately, Texas has probably mentioned a time or two. But let's start with what I thought was the most important game of the weekend going into Week 1. LSU at Clemson, Saturday night, Death Valley on Death Valley. You know, I said going in, Travis, that I wouldn't be shocked if LSU put it all together for 1 week and then reverted back to the LSU that we've seen in the last couple of seasons under Brian Kelly. But there's a lot of talent around, and Blake Baker called a hell of a game. When you look at LSU, you look at Clemson and the way that game played out. What were your thoughts, and kind of where does that or what does that change for you in your mind with LSU, or does it change anything at all?
Well, it's tough because I always, kind of chop up that first loss to LSU under Brian Kelly because he can never win the opener. So I was going into that game expecting Clemson to take care of business at home with, one of the Heisman favorites. They're obviously one of the title contenders, favorites, odds wise. So I know that Brian Kelly and the Tigers have lost to worse teams in Week 1, but and they got it done. I don't know if this is a changing of the guard or a turning of the tide or whatever you want to call it. Him getting the monkey off his back, but he was a little. Him and Dabo had a little spice back and forth in the press conference, which is always fun. I like that. So, yeah, I thought I've been higher on LSU than I think a lot of people have this year. Even before the Clemson game, like I thought, yeah, they might lose that game, but they might run the gauntlet after that. I really like Caden Durham a lot. Obviously, very talented running back. That OU came down to his top 2. So really like Caden Durham. Obviously, they add Sharp, so we knew that would hurt them. But they did add Nick Anderson from Oklahoma as well. I'm a big Nuss guy. I think he's fantastic. I think he's I think he'll hear his name called very early. So, the question was, is LSU going to fix the defense, which has been wild. They haven't had a top 20 or S&P plus defense since Joe was on campus. So when you start thinking of LSU, you start thinking, the DBU title, right? Crazy, just nasty defensive line, right? Like Tyrann Mathieu and Patrick Peterson and all these guys. Like, that's what you think about, right? But they just haven't been a good defense since 2019. Not a top 20 defense since 2019. And even the 2019 team, they all thought, it's Joe Burrow's team, but they didn't realize how good the defense was on that squad. So, yeah, I thought LSU, it's interesting because LSU could have lost that game and still made the playoff because they have opportunity in front of them, right?
Right.
Clemson, like, kind of the same, but they just have easier games. Now they've lost the one to LSU, but the ACC schedule, their ACC schedule specifically, is not that difficult. I still think they make it to the ACC championship, which is probably just going to put them into the field regardless. So that's what, the outcome of that game, while it's good for both of those schools that it matters less, kind of bugs me about the expanded playoff. It's like, you got Eli Dorkwitz talking about, let's make this thing 32 teams. It's like, man, Week 1 does not matter at that point then. Doesn't matter. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it if a bunch of 8-4 teams, 7-5 team or whatever can get into the playoffs. So, anyways, I thought it was a fun game to watch. I was actually watching it while I was doing post game radio after the OU game, so it was kind of fun to kind of keep track of that. But yeah, so I'll let you welcome John as he popped in the middle of. John, I trust me. I started the whole thing talking about how great Georgia is, and then I got off on LSU. I promise.
Welcome, John. How are you, buddy? We can't hear you, brother. You might be unmute yourself, my man. But yeah, it's funny how you you said you're watching it while you're doing post game live radio for the Sooners. I was watching it while crying in my pillow because I don't think we look like a 7-5 team, but I will say that I was pretty confident in a win. I will say that I didn't expect perfection from March Manning, but I still didn't expect that. Before we get to Texas, Ohio State, I think I know your answer, but buy or sell on LSU as a title contender, Mr. Trav?
I'm buying. I think I'm a big Weeks guy too. Like him a lot, but I'm a Nuss guy and I'm a Caden Durham guy. I think they played well. I had questions of how they would replace one of the best left tackles in America from a year ago. They seem to do it just fine. So, anyways, I'm buying LSU as a title contender. If Brian Kelly, is able to get over the hump of winning week one, I don't know. Maybe he's not done getting monkeys off of his back. It doesn't look like Alabama's going to be as tough as many suspected. I think there will be some things at stake in that last game of the season in Thanksgiving weekend when the Bayou Bengals come to Norman, Oklahoma.
I mean, they do have a tough schedule. LSU has plenty of opportunities, but again, that defense looked the way that we're accustomed to seeing LSU defenses look. This time, John, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. I can hear you down there this time. How we doing, Bubba?
I am glad to be here, and sad for the haters like Joshy in the chat that I'm no longer muted. So I get to hear my glorious voice, Joshy. No, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys. Good to see you, Travis. Always great to be with you, Ghost. And I was listening to Travis talk a little bit about LSU, and I think for me, LSU, it's so interesting, right? Because there is this idea of, is LSU a contender or is Dabo daboing again? Because Clemson started last year, and lost to Georgia 34-3 in a game that I saw live, and I thought, man, Clemson looked terrible. And then they went on a little run, and their schedule wasn't, that difficult, but they ended up being, by the end of the year, ended up being, a pretty competitive football team. And I'm curious if LSU is for real or if Dabo, if Clemsoning is back a little bit, and I'm not sure we're going to know. But I know one thing with LSU is you got Florida September 13th. You got at Ole Miss on September 27th. I think you're going to find out by the end of September. I think we're going to really know how legit LSU is or not. But that defense looked great, and I think LSU, like to Travis's point, if Brian Kelly can get that first monkey off his back, which he hasn't been able to do since he's been at LSU, I mean, that's a big hurdle, especially when you're going on the road at Clemson with all of that pressure that's coming from all the offseason and hot seat talk and everything else with Brian Kelly.
Yeah, that's well said, man. I mean, the way that defense looked, you're like, well, who moves the football on them consistently? But then again, you think exactly what you just said about Dabo, about Clemson. Clemson is a term for a reason. For me, I need to see more. Yeah, I agree with you. After Florida or Ole Miss, we'll know a lot more. I am pretty high on Austin Simmons and Ole Miss this year. That's going to be a fun test for that defense. We'll know a lot more about a lot of people come late September. D, I appreciate you being here, man. The space was fun the other night. I do have a lot of purple in my closet. It is not LSU related. Daughters in club volleyball. Got to support. Got to represent. And I've pretty much worn all my Texas stuff in like the last week. And it's not that I'm ashamed. Not completely. But let's talk about that one for a little bit. I've talked about it plenty over the last few days. But I'm very respectful of your two opinions, even if when it might not be something I want to hear regarding Texas travel. Let's start with you. You watched Texas at Ohio State. Obviously, you saw Arch Manning struggle. You saw the Texas defense play pretty well. You saw question marks about play calling at time. Just giving you my thoughts. What were yours?
My thoughts were we need to decide how we talk about Arch Manning, because it's are we comparing him to his uncle, the true freshman that had to go in because of injury, that had to face a top team, or are we talking about him as a guy that's been in Texas's system for 3 years, sitting behind a seventh rounder? Are we going to talk about him as the number one recruit in the country? That's a generational talent. That's got, NFL GMs' wives salivating over him to be able to draft him number one. The Saints are already on Arch watch, things like that. Are we going to put Texas number one despite all their losses because of the gravity that
I'm kind of glad he's going out at this moment.
Or are we going to talk about, he started against the number 3 team or number 2 team on the road. He should struggle. I don't know. People need to make up their mind on it and stick with it. Is he a generational prospect that's the obvious and clear number 1 pick and Heisman favorite? Or is he a guy with less than 100 passes to his name that we're going to let grow? I thought Mike Wilbon had an interesting point about how people talked about Jeremiah Smith being the greatest college player in history or greatest college receiver in history. Arch Manning being the greatest prospect in history. All these, everybody is wrapped up in so much hyperbole because they see an on-3 graphic with, a big word at the bottom of it as the caption, and everything's got to be the best ever, the worst ever, the historic this, historic that. Can we just get to a point where we let people grow into what they're going to be? You can see a talented freshman or a talented high schooler. You don't have to crown him the greatest of all time that you've ever seen. It's just ridiculous. I mean, in fact, Paul Feinbaum was like, Arch Manning's the greatest football player I've ever seen. It's I don't understand why everybody needs to use such just grandiose phrases of all this, that, and the other, because it doesn't do Arch any favors. That's what was bugging me is I got after Emmanuel Acho on Twitter because last year he had a video.
Because he sucks? Because he's awful. Sorry.
In his first start, he was like, we're going to go over the tape. Arch Manning is already a top 10 quarterback in college football. This was last year. And then he spent all offseason the starter, everything. And then he put out a tweet this year after the game going, guys, this is just a guy in his third start, man. We can't just be, blah, blah, blah. It's no, you can't have it both ways. You guys got views off Arch Manning's name all year. And now you're trying to be, realistic about this, that, and the other. The thing is, you all know, if you follow me on Twitter, that I thought Texas would win this game. I picked Texas to win. I bet on Texas to win this game because I had faith in Colin Simmons and Ant Hill to get it done. I thought that they would be the difference in the game. I thought that Ohio State lost too much talent, and I know Texas lost a lot of talent too, but whereas Texas has question marks on the offensive line based on what they lost, I think Ohio State, they brought back so many people from that 2024 draft class. They only had 4 people drafted in 2024, which was the least in Ohio State since 2003. So they literally got all these dudes that were day 2 picks to come back for this big title run. So I thought if there was ever a team that was set up to have a championship hangover, it was this team that finally brought all these guys back, and they lost 4 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders. I mean, 7 dudes gone in the first 2 rounds. That's significant. Texas lost a ton to the draft too, but it was a little bit more evenly spread out. I had Texas winning this game, and I like Texas's running back room a lot. I think they're very good. It just came down to, Arch Manning's mechanics left him. I thought he was John Stockton out there from time to time throwing bounce passes instead of, trying to hit him, in the air. I just thought it was very odd. He's a guy that, I mean, you talk about genetics, you talk about mentors, you talk about his family's camps, you talk about all this, and it's like, how do you devolve into those mechanics that everybody saw? How is he falling away on his back foot throwing sidearms? And then, of course, everybody's like, well, he's got to be injured. No, no, let's not do that. Let's not say if you play poorly, you're injured, and if you play well, you're just as good as we all thought you were. So, anyways, I thought it was a tough game. I thought Ohio State suffered with some drops early. Still some good physical coverage, but Sayin was hitting some dudes in the hands. I think tight end dropped 2. I think Jeremiah Smith might have had a couple drops. But yeah, I think Texas is going to be just fine. I think Texas makes the playoff. Like, again, it's a 12-team playoff. Like, I feel like everybody makes the playoff these days. So I don't
Except for
know.
Texas A&M.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So I don't know.
Sorry.
I think Texas has elite defensive players. I think their defensive line held up better than I thought it would, considering how young they are there. And it's not the talent of their team, the strength of their team. Malik Muhammad and Taffy and all these guys, like, that's the team. But it just flat out came down to Arch wasn't good enough, and that's okay. We shouldn't have made him out to be football Jesus in the first place.
Hard to disagree with any of that. What do you think, John? I mean, I'm sure it brought a little bit of a smile to your face to see Texas take an L. I know Evan, Chris, Allen, my other good Georgia. Y'all are probably my like holy trinity of Georgia friends. You, Chris, and Evan. And I already know how the other two feel, so you can try and lie to me, but I'm sure you enjoyed it at least a little bit.
Listen, I root for my team. I don't root for a conference. I don't but I also don't, except for Alabama, I'll be honest, and Tennessee, I guess. I don't really root for other teams to lose. Like, I think for me, it's like this game, I wanted a good competitive football game. And I think the challenge that I had with it is it wasn't very good football. And I know it was game 1, but I think for me, I think that the challenge that Arch Manning had is a challenge that quarterbacks in their first start have all the time, right? Ohio State, Matt Patricia had a whole offseason to prepare, to put in situational pressure packages, to put in things to confuse a quarterback making I know it's not his first start, but making his first, like, real, like, road start in an environment like that. And when you have a situation that you have a quarterback, it doesn't matter if it's Arch Manning or anybody else. I think the challenge is, Travis mentioned it a lot. Part of the issue that we have is just is off-season hype and preseason polls and all these things build up these expectations that in reality Arch Manning, and I'm going to share this on Twitter tomorrow, but I've started digging into some research. Guys who play at smaller private schools, it doesn't matter if you're Arch Manning, it doesn't matter if you're Brock Vandegrift, who was like played at Georgia and was like the number 3 quarterback in his class, 5-star. It doesn't matter. Like, if you're not in high school playing like really like high level competition, it takes a little bit when you get into college to adjust to that high level competition. It just does. And I think the disservice really to Arch Manning was just hyperbole, or I don't even know if it's hyperbole. It's just the hype, right? The expectations that everyone has set. And I think he's going to be fine. I think this was a situation where, again, if you look at college football, if you look at the games this weekend, and we've seen this play out now, except for the playoffs with Ohio State and that offense, kind of going off. But we saw it play out in the first weekend. Clemson and LSU was 17-10 or whatever. You had like these games that are against really good competition in week 1 are typically lower scoring affairs where the defense is going to win the majority of the games, right? If you got Cade Klubnik at Clemson, Arch Manning, at Texas, when you have the expectations from the offensive side of the ball, the defense is typically the one that's going to win in these first weeks. And it is because, like, you just have a longer time to think about what are the mismatches they're going to try to run up, what are the situational pressures that we can run, how can we confuse this guy, is a quarterback making his first start on the road against a really good athletic defense, what can we do? So my takeaways are Ohio State, Matt Patricia, shout out, game plan. Arch Manning, mechanics, and did have some challenges with, I think Steve Sarkisian, I think he got a little bit tight around the goal line when you have, guys that you got that offensive line, you got Baxter, you got guys who can run it, and you're kind of, just playing with your food a little bit around the goal line, I think was the challenge. But realistically, Texas, to Travis's point, Texas is going to be fine. Ohio State's going to be fine. I think this was probably, and I hate to say to be like the coach speak, but it's probably the best outcome for Arch Manning, to be honest. Like the best outcome for Texas, not necessarily the loss, but the best outcome, for me was like the guy comes out and lays a little bit of an egg, and that hype and that, kind of like all that just kind of like balances out a little bit. And now he can go back to like getting coached, putting in game plans, going out, trying to execute, and trying to be, the player that everybody thinks he can be, and he doesn't have that spotlight on him anymore.
Until he puts up 300 yards against San Jose State, and everybody comes out and says, "See, we told you he was generational. His uncles played at that same high school. What are you talking about?" So
see, and that's where you got to start. You got to start choosing who you follow carefully, because if you were subscribed to this channel and you listen to the people that we bring on this channel, we tried to tell you that Arch Manning last season, not deer in the headlights, but I mean, there's a reason that Quinn started. Okay, now could Arch Manning have started the first 3 games of last season? Colorado State, Michigan, and then Christ, who do we play? UTSA, and then that team had potential higher upside. I could make an argument for that. I really would believe that, because like John just said, it is a different game speed. This is not Newman High School anymore. This is SEC. This is Big Ten football. This is different. And now, John, you made a great point. He has all the offseason to prepare for him. Well, he also had just came off of, a preparation for Sark and the Cotton Bowl. I mean, it does help. It really does. Not Sark or Matt Patricia necessarily, but Ryan Day. And he is a guy that knows a thing or two about wide receiver, passing game concepts. And so there was plenty of film, obviously, for Ohio State to kind of see how Texas might attack them. And I will say this, Evan, you asked a question earlier about his throwing mechanics. When your mental clock, when that mental process gets sped up as a quarterback, it is so easy to revert from who you are as a player and as a passer. And I'm not making excuses for him. He was really bad at spots. I said yesterday on my message to Texas fans, Sark's plan was more than good enough. He had as good a plan as Matt Patricia had. But Matt Patricia has a Caleb Downs lurking over the middle, quarterbacking that defense, and we had Arch Manning, who the moment was pretty dang big. But let me tell you this, man, that the people that say anybody in the Manning family is a generational talent, it's a clickbait. It's headlines. Peyton Manning was not a generational talent. Was he a damn good quarterback? Yeah. Did he become an elite Hall of Famer, one of the best 2 to ever do it, in my opinion? Yeah, sure. But he did it being an incredible student of the game. I mean, he mastered that side of the game, the schematic, the film side. Just having the biggest brain on the football field was Peyton's biggest tool. Obviously, he had to put the ball in spots where he did. Very blessed athletically, physically as well. But people calling Arch Manning a generational talent, it's tough, man. It's tough. Puts a lot of pressure on the kid, and that's just.
I think that's part of your, on John a little bit. Your guys is it just means more. The Mannings are football royalty because they are Southeastern Conference royalty. It is not a situation like part of this is because the Manning family is Southeastern football royalty. So it's
but they also, I mean, Archie won a Heisman and they're both Super Bowl champions. So there's that too.
No, I totally get that. But what I'm saying is part of it is drawn up because of the SEC. Because this is where it means more. This is and I mean, I'm as big as Eli Manning hater is out there. He is not a Hall of Famer. Your Hall of Fame resume can't be that you beat a different Hall of Famer a couple times. Like that's not you. Anyways, I can hate on Eli Manning on a different podcast, but regardless, it's I would say that he's less of a generational talent as he is football royalty. I think those are two different things. But you bring up, we brought up Newman, we brought up the high school. Like, it's so lazy to be like, well, that's the competition that his uncles faced, and look how they turned out. I'm like, the competition they faced at Isidore Newman, first off, is not what made them Super Bowl champions. Is not what made them what they were. Also, I don't know if you guys know about Isidore Newman, they've dumbed it down incredibly. Like, it was not 2A Division III select whenever Peyton or Eli were playing. Like, it was like 3A back in the day, and then they went to 2A Division III, and then now it's 2A Division III select, which has been watered down even more. And that's why all these clips that come out with Eli or with Arch are like, man, look at all these kids chasing him. Like, these guys aren't high school players, let alone because it's been watered down so much. So when you say this is the competition that Peyton played, no, it is not. It absolutely is not. Right. So, but John, you bring up good points. It's like it's more about early defense, right? It's like it's just like camp. Anytime we talk about camp, the defense is always better in the first week of camp, right? Always, like to a T.
Yeah. When you're running scrimmages, when you you read the reports of these, of fall camp scrimmages. I went to one of Georgia's scrimmages this in August, and the defense won the day. Like, it just happens because in these early games, it really is. It's speed of the game, is Jimmys and Joes and athletes on athletes. And if you can create situational pressure, if you can get, guys home, if you just have some dudes that can, even do sim pressure and throw the quarterback off a little bit in game one, that's always, you're always going to see that. I think I will say this, like Peyton Manning didn't win a national championship in college. Like Eli Manning, his best year was his last year, and he won 10 games at Ole Miss. And I think for me, though, I do think Arch, the one thing that confuses me, and this, I don't want to make this all about Arch. I think Texas as a whole, like, I think there were challenges for Texas. I think there were challenges for Ohio State. Ended up being a goal line stand, basically, like won the game, right? It's like at the end of the day, it came down to just a few key plays that Ohio State made and Texas didn't, and that's the way the game went. But I will say, like, I do think some of the decision making and the mechanics and things like that, I do put down to just nerves, pressure, I do think some of that stuff it's some of the easier things to work out. Like, I think turn around, have a good game, like get that out of your system. To your point, Travis, who cares? Like, go out, let Arch go out and throw for 400 yards, like, to turn it loose, let everybody build the hype machine back up again, but just get the guy relaxed and get the skill players around him relaxed and just go out and play ball. Because I think for me, it really came down to, I just felt like Texas, and I actually mentioned this, I replied to Ghost on Twitter on my takeaway from it is I just think Sark got tight. Like, I think for whatever reason, like, there were times in the game where he just got tight. And I think in those kind of games, you almost would rather lose of just like you almost would rather lose just like slinging it around and Arch making some mistakes, turning the ball over or something, than lose like getting tight around the goal line. It's like I think some of that'll be worked out.
Honestly, I don't hate our red zone approach up until the quarterback sneak. I like putting Arch in shotgun and running, but even on the running plays inside the 10-yard line, if you watch, second and goal from like the 7, and we just run a little quarterback draw. If he lets blocks develop, if he bounces outside to the left, it's a walk-in touchdown. But every part of his mental process was sped up. I'm not gonna wait on blocks to develop. I'm gonna fly through my reads. I'm gonna flush pockets early, or I'm going to make it a point that I stay in this pocket. I'm so worried about staying in this pocket that I'm not even progressing what's going on. And also, we look to be a little bit terrified of Caleb Downs. You know, like it wasn't just Arch that pressed. I would agree. Sark pressed. Our wide receivers pressed at times. And you say all of that, and you still crossed midfield 5 times compared to Ohio State's twice, got inside the red zone 3 times, only scored once, and you have an opportunity to tie that football game in the end. So, yeah, the Texas fans that are doom and gloom, it is pretty funny. Margin for error got a little bit more thin, but I can't talk about this anymore. This is sick. All right. Michigan,
Hold on.
Oklahoma, let's talk about
One thing. Caleb Downs, for my money, maybe the best defensive player in the country. I would put Colin Simmons kind of and Dylan Stewart probably in kind of that conversation as well. It's pretty crazy because aren't Caleb Downs and Arch Manning in the same class?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels like one has just been one of the best players in college football for 3 years now. Yep. It's like we're finally getting to, take the cover off of Arch. It's crazy to me to think that those two guys are in the same class. But anyways.
Caleb Downs. Yeah, I will say this about Caleb Downs. He played high school ball right down the street from me, and he was different. Like that dude was different. Like he's
awesome.
Georgia really, really, really wanted him. And he ended up going to Alabama, and almost came to Georgia when he transferred. Actually, I think a lot of people thought he was going to Georgia, and Ohio State came in with the bag drop like the next morning. But that dude, there are some people like Arch Manning is a good example. Like I think quarterbacks in general take a little bit of time, but some of those defensive guys like Caleb Downs, you could see his junior year in high school. You're like, yeah, this dude is a dude, man. Like he's just gonna be that guy. But I do agree. I think I don't know. I think something Georgia's dealing with this a little bit with Gunnar Stockton as well. Like I think there's going to have to be a little bit of a change, I think, to an approach at some point with some of these upper echelon coaches, because like you got to get these guys. I mean, you just got to get them in some form or fashion. You got to get them ready earlier, like guys who are in the program, who know the system, who have the football IQ, who have all the gifts and talents. But when they sit around for a couple of years, it feels like when they first get their opportunity, it feels like it takes a little bit longer for that engine to get going. So
it would be interesting, like guys that are in their last year, like going back to Quinn, right? Like everyone knew Quinn was in his last year. There are some people that thought he should have stayed in college, transferred, and made ungodly amounts of millions of dollars, and let Arch have his Texas gig and Quinn could go, and then continue to elevate his draft stock or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. I think what Ghost brought up earlier was interesting. Like, I kind of started thinking, like, man, what if Sark let Arch start more games last year and just let Quinn get healthier and healthier and give him the rest? Quinn's your guy. Like, let Arch play a little more. But then if Arch plays extremely well, what's the downside, right? You still got, what's your ceiling like? Does he raise your ceiling? At the end of the day, you're not in year 3 of the perfect rated high school recruit going, man, I hope he gets, really good throughout the year and then maybe leaves us in his first year. Like when I think of, like, to your point, defensive players look so good early, I think to like Trevor Lawrence. Like that was a guy that was a quarterback that I was and segue it into Bryce Underwood, I suppose. But like Trevor Lawrence was a guy who came in as a freshman, and it was like, okay, that guy, yeah, you got talent all around you, but Trevor Lawrence, he's a lot closer to like a generational talent than anything I'd say. Him and like maybe like an Andrew Luck type of guy. But anyways, Bryce Underwood, many people think that Bryce Underwood is that type of guy, and we'll be seeing him at Oklahoma. Ghost, what are your thoughts on the matchup there in Norman?
That's going to be a really tough experience for Bryce Underwood, in my opinion. And, hey, you look at it, you think Oklahoma, a lot of turnover on offense. You've got a new OC, new quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't love Michigan's defense. I really don't. I think they could have given up more than they did in their opener with New Mexico. it's hard for me to see Bryce Underwood going in there and winning, to be honest. I think Oklahoma even covers the what 5.5, 6 points that I've seen it move up to. Yeah. And that's just my early impression as we go through the week. I mean, it's always subject to change, but early thoughts on it. I'll dive a little bit more into Michigan, but I've watched the Sooners now. I think I watched it twice, and still some questions about the offense, the offensive line, the running game, just who's going to be your go-to back. DeMarco wants a go-to back. Who's it going to be? I know some are still getting healthy. I understand that, but just saying what my question marks are. But Michigan has more, in my opinion, and more inexperience coupled with that. I really don't think that Oklahoma lets that one get away from them, because Brent Venables absolutely has to have it, in my opinion. What do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma. I think it's a must-win game. I think you've got a quarterback and an offensive line that seems to be, again, it's just one game, but it has seemed to be gelling a lot more than what we saw last year. And more importantly, again, early season defense, and Venables' defensive mind. I don't see Michigan with that inexperience. I don't see them having enough firepower, despite what Bryce Underwood did, last week. I just don't see them having enough firepower to actually to win that game. So I also think Michigan's defense, I think with Mateer and kind of just his style of play, I think the Michigan defense, you saw it a little bit, last year, at the end of last year. It's like they're not the most disciplined defense it's not like some of those Harbaugh defenses that we saw in the last couple of years with Jim Harbaugh. And I think you have a quarterback who can make plays in a number of ways in Mateer, and I think that to me is going to be a big difference in the game.
One more thing, Travis, before I get to you, because I think John said a lot of good things right there. If Michigan cannot run the football, they will get curb stomped, because you're going to throw Bryce Underwood to the Brent Venables Wolves. That's those complex looks and disguise coverage. It's going to get dicey. Now Bryce Underwood could completely just blow everybody away. This is his coming out moment. This is when he says, "Hey, I'm the generational talent that people should be talking about. Put my name on more headlines. Talk about me, Emmanuel Acho." But no, I think he's going to have big time struggles. Going to be really, really difficult, especially if they can't run the ball. Run the ball, it gets a lot easier. As you can see, sometimes even when you can't run the ball, Texas ran for 160, and our young quarterback still, he looked how he looked. Trav, we got like 5 minutes, brother. Give me all the reasons that Oklahoma wins, and if something went crazy, Oklahoma loses on Saturday, what happened?
Yeah, so a lot has been made of Illinois State, and I know they're not good, but as far as FCS teams go, they were picked like sixth in the preseason polls nationally amongst FCS. What's interesting is they returned a lot on offense. They returned a 3,000-yard passer, senior, that's up for – he'll probably an FCS All-American this year. They had a 2-time Missouri Valley Football Conference, back-to-back all-time first-team all-conference receiver. They can throw the ball. What's interesting is they threw for 34 yards against Oklahoma, and everybody goes, well, Oklahoma knew they couldn't throw the ball, Illinois State. So I don't know how they couldn't stop the run. No, this team can throw the ball. They shut it down, 34 yards. They gave up a couple big runs that they shouldn't have. They got caught inside a little bit. Kendall Daniels got caught inside when he shouldn't have. A boot kind of got outside. So, first week we have some busts, but Michigan fans are looking at that going, they couldn't stop Illinois State. They have no chance against us, but I think that Oklahoma's defensive line, one of the best run defense units a year ago, that didn't lose a ton of talent. Obviously, you lose Danny Stutzman in the middle of that defense, but Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, they're some dogs. You ain't got to worry about that. I think they've got a lot of safety help that's good. I think they're bringing back a lot of guys. If we don't get it done, it's because the offensive line additions couldn't hold up. Because that's the thing. Against Illinois State, we held out multiple tackles, 2 that will be starting this week that didn't start a week ago, I'm sure. Held out a guard, precautions. We didn't give the ball to Ott. All the media this week is confused at OU. All the fans are confused. The national media is confused because we don't know what happened with Ott? Why did he just go in the fourth quarter? I was losing my mind on the postgame show. I'm like, what's going on? Like, hey, who's going to play offensive line? We don't even know. But the thing is, Michigan doesn't know either. And I'm guessing that was the plan all along. The Illinois State tape, they have nothing to do with it. They can't look at anything. But you bring up John Mateer. Like, Mateer checked out of so much and checked into new things because he knows that offense so well. He's played in it a long time. He's called it. And they talked about, hey, man, we knew they were going to play, a lot of cover four, whatnot. He said we knew the middle of the field to be open, and John can just rifle those in there and just take what the defense gives you. He doesn't have to press anything. I think he was like 10 of 11 on passes past 10 yards, but shorter than 20 yards to the middle of the field. Like, he was surgical in that. But it was just like, well, if that's what the defense wants to play, I will gash you all day right here for 15-yard gains, 14-yard gains, 13-yard gains. And that's what I think you gained so much with Mateer. And he didn't let the rip. He only threw one super deep ball, and that's a guy that likes to sling it. So I think he's holding back. I think the run game's holding back. I think Brent Venables knows this is the biggest game of his career, and you have to win this game. You guys called it a must-win. I couldn't agree more. I think you have to win this game. There's 75 recruits that are going to be in Norman. Game day is going to be there. It's going to be absolutely rocking. It's also a big game for Ben Arbuckle. He's the hot new guru, right? The new what Sark once was, what Lincoln Riley once was, what all these guys were. He needs to come out and he needs to dice up a Michigan defense whose secondary looked suspect against New Mexico and who's going to be out one of their best players for the first half of the game.
That is a big thing, especially on a defense that is still trying to retool itself a little bit. I think there's still starting jobs that are up for the grabs. Inside of that defense, and that is a big injury. Another reason why I feel very confidently that Oklahoma gets out to a hot start, which again puts Michigan in a spot. If they're having to play catch up, man, that's another thing. Obviously, they have to lean more on Bryce Underwood. If they can't get in a shootout with Oklahoma, they're not going to be built for it yet. Underwood's not. He just doesn't have the reps. And again, Venables has had an entire offseason to prepare for this moment, this game. Yeah, there's not tape on Bryce Underwood, but you can see college tape, but you can see high school tape. You can learn what Michigan likes to do on offense and envision the plan with him. And then of course you got their week one. So yeah, I think it's going to be really, really, really hard. But I don't know, Travis, can you hear that in the background? Kind of, hell to the victors valley. You might hear that a lot. You might hear it a lot on Saturday. I just don't know,
I honestly
man.
like their fight song a lot. Like, it's a great fight song.
It's a banger.
Yeah.
I probably hum it at least 3 to 5 times a day, depending. It could be more. That's throughout the year. It's the best.
If Brent Venables doesn't win this game,
Cooked.
y'all.
Yeah, I agree.
Cooked. If you think what's going on with Kalen DeBoer is at Alabama is bad, like just let Brent Venables lose this game, and it's going to be right up there. Because we call it a must win. I just think you said it well, Travis. I think it's the biggest game of his career as a head coach. I'll be interested to see the game plan, especially from Ben Arbuckle. I'll be interested to see what do you do. Like, you put together on paper an offense that should be able to really expose an inexperienced defense, regardless of the athletes on the other side of the ball. And I think there was just last year, I think there was so many games with Oklahoma that were just so confusing offensively, where you're just like, what was there a game plan? Like even the game, versus Alabama, where Jackson Arnold was basically like, okay, I'm just going to win this game. Like, I'm just tired of,
That's exactly what he did against Baylor. I'm just going to run the ball.
Yeah. Against Baylor. Yeah. The same thing. It's like, I'm going to go play hero ball. And maybe that was it. Maybe last year, maybe it was a consequence of a quarterback that was, kind of had that hero ball in him a little bit too much. But I think this game, for all of Venables' defensive mind and all of that stuff, this game has got to be about what's the cohesive offensive plan for Oklahoma to come out and attack this Michigan defense. Like, it just has to be. And I think if at halftime, I think if the OU if you OU media are like questioning, what are we doing with Jade Knott? Like, what are we doing? Like, if those questions are like at halftime of this game, I think there's going to be a real problem in Norman. But that being said, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think I think Venables did the right thing, right? He went and got an offensive coordinator and brought his quarterback with him, and it's like, hey, let's run this offense and bring people in that can run this offense, and let's build an actual scheme, an actual plan that feels cohesive.
So I will say that I've done a lot of homework on, as a former OC, I love to see these schemes. And Arbuckle, all the run concepts that he has, I mean, he's going to use every inch of grass out on the football field. I'm a huge split zone guy. He loves split zone. And then watching the creativity of the play action off of it is really cool. Oklahoma has a damn good offensive coordinator, and my biggest hope as a Texas fan is that, it doesn't work out with Venables and Arbuckle is somewhere else next season calling plays, because I really do think he is a very, very elite mind. He'll be a head coach at some point in his life, but he's still young enough to where he could hang out in Norman, Oklahoma for a while and do a little bit of damage. Guys, got to have to wrap it up with that. Yep. Would like to go over Ole Miss, Kentucky. We'll get into that another time. But appreciate y'all being here. Y'all are really active in the chat. Hopefully y'all are all still friends. But if you haven't done so, like this video. John, tell a friend to tell a friend. He says, y'all show somebody this video that we're hyping up OU to smash Michigan. Let's piss off some Wolverines or something. Get the video watched a few more times, guys. All right.
Hit the like, the subscribe. Joshy and Nash calling out everybody's IQ score. It's been great. Like, y'all just been. It's been good to see y'all in the chat. Thanks for hanging out.
Been fun. Trav, thanks for coming back. I am off to HEB late night grocery store run. Travis, safe travel, my man. I wish you the best of luck this weekend. John, thank you as always. We'll see y'all soon.